Hey guys, welcome to episode 7 of Stuck Not Stopped. Before I jump into any and all disclaimers, I would like to put a note out there that any music you hear in the background will be from the Chill Hop Music YouTube channel. I've been in love with listening to them lately. No, this is not a sponsorship. This is just so I don't get, I think it would be demonetized. I don't want to take credit for music that isn't mine. So this is Arigod, Aarigod, Forest Lore. So if you guys want to check out their channel, I absolutely love this music. I have it on in the background literally all the time. And I'm just deciding to see if this adds any kind of vibe to the podcast. I've been not really feeling it with nothing going on in the background, and I don't have any kind of fancy subscription to my video editing software, so I've just been using the soundtracks from Movavi. I think I used it on my last episode, if I recall, and to tell you the truth in the moment, I can't remember, but in any case, if that's what you hear in the background, that's what it is. With that being said, let's jump into some disclaimers before I get into the bulk of what we're going to be talking about today. So the first, and as always, I am not a doctor, I am not a medical professional, so anything that I am saying is out of my own personal research, my perspective, my interpretation, my opinion, whatever you want to call it. The second, we will be talking about a condition called Dyspareunia. I believe that's how you pronounce it. And as always, vaginismus, since that is the theme of why we're here, and it is not recommended to self-diagnose. I am not going to be reading any definitions and hoping that you guys will declare that you have something. Always check with a doctor. Please always check with a doctor first to get accurate information, to get accurate responses and protocols if need be. All sources to information are linked below, but it seems like sometimes there's an issue accessing links in the description box, so I'm going to put them in there. I'm going to try to pin them in a comment, and they're also going to be up on my blog, stucknotstopped.org. So if you guys want to go ahead and further read all the information that I give out today, go ahead and click through some of those links and search as you will. They will also be on my Facebook page, which should actually be a lot easier to link just because it's Facebook. I don't know. The last note I want to make is to please like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton, and it helps you guys out a ton by helping your community and helping this platform grow. If there's no likes, no subscriptions, no comments, nothing, the YouTube algorithm just kind of sees it as a dead channel, and that's absolutely not what we are. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. I can see my views are a little higher than my subscriber count, so what are you doing? Subscribe, turn on the bell notification, so every time I upload every month, you get notified and you know the new episode. The last thing I wanted to ask you guys is if you could leave a comment for what pages I should follow on Instagram, Facebook, or just websites in general for me to check out. Anything to do with vaginismus, femininity, feminism, womanhood, all that jazz. So with all of that being said, finally, let's get into episode 7. So today we're going to be talking about differences and comparisons between dyspareunia and vaginismus. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, by the way, and anybody knows it, please correct me in the comments. I looked up how to write out the pronunciation, but I didn't listen to it, and sometimes that makes a difference, and I don't know, I'm already recording, so I'm going to stick with it. So I'm sorry if that sounds a little off. So on the Mayo Clinic website, which is super helpful for tons and tons and tons of medical, biology related, all that kind of stuff, they define it as persistent or recurrent genital pain that occurs just before, during, or after intercourse. So obviously, with vaginismus, this does happen. So what I see this as is that vaginismus is a type of dyspareunia. Dyspareunia is an umbrella term for lots of other disorders that can cause sexual pain. Dyspareunia covers a variety of disorders, including pelvic inflammatory disease, retroverted uterus, irritable bowel syndrome, adenomyosis. I also think I said that wrong, and I did not think to look it up. So this is a lesson for me for the next podcast episode is always look up every single word that looks weird to pronounce. All of those, and among others. So there seems to be lots of different types that I actually want to go into. I know they're not necessarily related to vaginismus, but I think that we can find a way to relate it to vaginismus because it's important to know what other disorders are out there. And it's important to know what else we might be experiencing, or maybe we don't have vaginismus and maybe it is something else, or maybe we thought it was something else and it turns out to be vaginismus. You know, I think that there's a lot to be said for having different types of pelvic floor disorders. And the biggest difference that I found really interesting between dyspareunia and vaginismus was that dyspareunia goes beyond sexual pain. According to the American Academy of Family Physicians, the AAFP, they say that this pain may be constant, whereas vaginismus is situational, or this pain may be triggered by non-sexual activities such as walking. Personally, I don't have any experience with vaginismus being a problem when I'm walking somewhere. I've always had it just be in sexual encounters or when trying to put in any kind of tampon. Mayo Clinic's website explains entry pain as well as deep pain. So it seems like there's two types. And it's interesting. I was actually, I guess relieved would be the good term, that vaginismus is actually listed on this website out for the whole world to see. Vaginismus is a subcategory of entry pain. The website says pain during penetration might be associated with a range of factors, including vaginismus listed as one of them. And it is also accurately described as involuntary spasming of muscles in the vaginal wall, which, as we know, is what vaginismus is. And that's linked to, obviously, it's biology. You know, our bodies are reacting in a way that we don't want it to. That's causing us disruption. That's causing us discomfort, displeasure, all that, you know, all of those things. But it's linked to psychological factors, whereas a lot of other circumstances in dyspareunia might not be all psychological. For example, with deep pain, as opposed to entry pain that was just mentioned, deep pain occurs with deep penetration and can be linked to disorders that I mentioned earlier, such as IBS, pelvic inflammatory disease, endometriosis, retroverted uterus, uterine fibrosis, cystis, ovarian cysts, hemorrhoids. You know, there's a lot of other conditions that I will be going over in future episodes, including on a little bit more expansion of vaginismus and these disorders in comparison to vaginismus. There are some emotional factors that go in, obviously, overall. Stress, psychological issues, a history of sexual abuse. However, I do want to take this point to reiterate that if you have never been through something such as traumatic as sexual abuse, that does not mean that you can't possibly have vaginismus. That does not mean you can't possibly have another disorder. It's the same concept with, in my opinion, it's the same concept with mood disorders or eating disorders or anything that we go through that's psychologically detrimental. It does not necessarily mean that every single person comes from a traumatic background. So again, this goes for vaginismus as well. You don't have to have gone through anything. You don't have to have met a certain criteria. You know, let's say that someone to your right has a worse history with sexual abuse than the person to your left. That doesn't necessarily mean that one's vaginismus is going to be worse than the other. And again, the same thing goes for any kind of mood disorders or psychological factors. You do not need to have had something happen to you in order for you to be going through something else. It is very likely, and it is, you know, I guess for lack of a better word, it quote unquote makes more sense. But, you know, everybody has their own circumstances. Everybody has their own story to tell. Which brings me to another point, something I wanted to ask of everybody. And I want to reiterate, anonymous, anonymous, anonymous. And I'm sure lots of you have seen me post this on my Instagram story lots of times. I know I've posted it on Facebook before, but I want to try to put together an episode of everybody's experiences so we can all just share what we've all been through. I've already had a couple really lengthy submissions, which are great. You're welcome to submit anything of any length. You can make a fake email if you don't even want me to know who you are. That's totally fine. It doesn't necessarily have to be about vaginismus. It can be about any kind of pelvic floor disorder, because whether it's vaginismus, vulvodynia, endometriosis, you know, we all go through similar circumstances dealing with stress and dealing with self-esteem. And so I think that it would be something that we could really bring everybody together, and we could all listen to each other and validate one another just through support, just through listening. And I would absolutely love to be a center for that, to get your stories out there if that's something you want to do. If you want to submit a story to have it read for a future featured episode, you can send it to my email, nm.talkpodcast@gmail.com, which again will be linked in the description box below. And you're always free to DM me your stories on Instagram as well. My Instagram handle is @Vaginismus_podcast. So wrapping back to what we're talking about today, we were just discussing that there are psychological and emotional factors, as well as just general biological, physical factors. And this can be kind of a tricky wheel to pause and turn and make it go in the right direction, because if you have a condition that is not linked to psychological factors initially, you can get psychological distress from that. So let's say that first of all, I do not have endometriosis. I do not have vulvodynia. I don't have either of those things. And from my knowledge of it, I have to do more research. So, please mind that I am not an expert on any of these. I am still in the middle of doing research. I don't want to come across as knowing a lot more than I do. From my understanding, endometriosis and vulvodynia are primarily a physical disorder, which can cause psychological stress. And from what I am studying in school, psychological stress will enhance physical pain. The physical pain enhances the psychological stress, and we all know this ricochets and goes in places to depths that we hate it and nobody ever wants it going to. So these are really things that you have to work through very patiently with yourself. Any type of dyspareunia is something that should be tended to and taken care of. If you have a splinter in your finger, you want to take it out, but you're not going to rip off your finger. You're going to take tweezers and you're going to take your time and you're going to go slow. And that's, it's the same kind of approach that should be used with dyspareunia, with sexual disorders, with vaginismus, and anything that you go through. I know this was back to our normal length. We are nearing the end of this. As I've said in previous episodes, I'm still kind of new at doing podcasts. This is only my 7th one, so I'm not sure how else to end it other than saying this discussion has been concluded, and I look forward to doing further research on these things. Let me know in the comments below if different types of sexual disorders is also something you want me to branch out on, while still centering my focus on vaginismus. Before you guys click off, there's something that I want to ask each and every one of you, and I want your honest opinions. I have been debating on kind of changing the name of the podcast. I think that it would be a lot easier for people to find if it were just blatantly called like Vaginismus Podcast, Vaginismus Talks, Vaginismus Struggles, anything like that. But I really genuinely like Stuck Not Stopped. I like how it rolls off the tongue. I like that that's what I thought of one day while I was brushing my teeth and thought I should make a podcast about this. And so I've been considering making Stuck Not Stopped the slogan instead of the title. That change is to be determined. That might take me another couple months to think on. But of course, your opinions matter to me so much because of how supportive you guys are. So let me know what you think of that in the comments below. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Happy St. Patrick's Day for those who celebrate and for those who are on the day March 17th of this hopefully great year. I hope you guys have an awesome month. I will talk to you soon. And as always, keep loving yourselves. Bye.